God walks on water. God can do anything, so why would this surprise us? The Old Testament attests to this fact over and over again. In the book of Job, we've learned that God alone spreads out the heavens and treads on the waves of the sea. Job 9:8. In the book of Habakkuk, it testifies to this as well, saying, "But you, God, trampled on the sea with your horses, on the surging, raging waters." From Habakkuk 3:15. And then again it says in Psalm 77, line 19, "You walked through the sea. You passed through the surging waters, but left no footprints." Yes, God can walk on water. The disciples probably knew this well already from Holy Scripture, what we call the Old Testament. But Jesus walking on water, this is something new. Jesus walking on water means that it's time for Jesus to reveal to this world that he truly is the divine, that he truly is God in our midst, the Emmanuel. This is one of those moments in the life of Jesus Christ that is going to really help the world to see who Jesus really is. And ask just about anybody, Christian or not, what miracles Jesus performed, and this one is sure to top the list. We see God in Jesus here. We see Holy Scripture pointing to the fact that only God can walk on water. And now we see that Jesus here is doing just that. Jesus is the Christ. And the power over, even the unique balance with the creation, Jesus walking on water, points us to this fact. And nobody else has the ability to walk on water, right? Well, wait. It seems like with Jesus Christ that this is even possible for you and me. We see this with Peter as he steps out onto the water to meet Jesus. Jesus says, "Come." And with a faith that transcends the earthly powers, the natural world, Peter's foot touches that water. And even putting his weight on it does not sink. With a feeling like maybe nobody else has had. In a faith stronger than this natural world. In a faith that brings Peter, like Jesus, into a new relationship with creation, Peter does something that is supposed to be impossible. It is faith that does this. It is faith that makes this impossible task of walking on water possible. And we learn today that with Jesus Christ, that these things are possible for even us. That there was a time when these miracles were impossible, that only God could do them. But now, with Peter and Jesus' exchange on the stormy sea, we learn that with Christ, anything and everything is possible. We are going to be able to do things, miracles, that even surprise us. Faith is what makes this miracle possible. Peter here represents the risk-taking of faith. Peter does good, following Jesus' call, and in faith he can do everything Jesus commands. With faith, anything is possible, but as we know, when Peter began to fear being the opposite of faith, when Peter noticed the strong wind, he became frightened, and what happened at that very second? He began to sink. He was not able to walk on water like Jesus did, apart from faith. And yet this faith, too, remains at some level. Well, Peter's faith, or lack thereof, lets him sink. There remains in faith in him, in Jesus, that makes it so that Jesus is still able to save him. And so, crying out for help, Peter faithfully says, "Lord, save me." And as we know, Jesus immediately reached out his hand. We see Jesus' faithfulness as unfaltering. We learn today that Jesus' faith is strong, even strong enough to hold up both Peter and himself. And when Jesus catches Peter, it is a learning moment for Peter and for us. Jesus looks at him and says to the only one of the disciples who had the gumption to actually step out of the boat, who we might consider the most brave, Jesus says, "You have little faith. Why did you doubt?" We witness the power of faith today. The power of Jesus Christ in faith, the power of Peter and all of humanity in faith. But we also witness the futility of faithlessness, of the fear creeping in and stealing the power of faith away. Jesus leads Peter back to the boat, and they both step into what I would imagine was a group of the widest-eyed disciples that anybody has ever seen. And as they step into that boat, the wind ceases. The cause of Peter's fear vanishes. And this is key. What has just unfolded is not just the miracle of Jesus and Peter walking on water. There is another miracle here as well. The reason to fear subsides with the wind. I'll repeat it. The reason for fear goes away. The disciples realized that only God can walk on water. And God just did that in front of them and through one of them. They now know who Jesus really is. And they begin to worship Jesus right then and there, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Jesus comes to the disciples in the gospel today and teaches us of the importance of faith, the power of faith. And he also teaches us what faithlessness means in our lives and how fear can take away the power of faith. It's a simple message that with faith you can do miracles, but with fear the world will remain the same. With faith you can do anything, but with fear you can do nothing. There's a message here in the gospel today that we might not be ready for. It might even surprise us. We learn today that the things that only God can do, miracles, are now able to be done by Jesus, and even further than that, by us. Jesus demonstrates this to us through him walking on the water, but also by Peter walking on the water. Yes, Jesus walking on the water is a miracle, but Jesus is God. And while this surprised the disciples for sure, not knowing just who Jesus was yet, we already know that. Possibly the biggest miracle we witness today is with Peter. Just a human being, walking on water. That should still surprise us. We see the power of miracles to work through human beings in the gospel today. And well, this leads me to miracles in our world, because I definitely have my criticisms and critiques of miracle healings. You know, those revival tent style worship services where they invite people in to be healed, setting up a few pretend miracles first so that you give some of your money away. Those places that set up hope for people in real need only to leave them walking away, never chosen to be healed. Or even worse, to come on stage and then be told that if you have enough faith, then you'll be healed. The preacher pushes his heel of his hand on their head, saying something like, "Satan be gone." The child falls back into the arms of the stagehand, and sadly leaving that day in the same pain that they arrived with, left condemning themselves for not having enough faith. It's things like this that makes me mad. Because it's things like this that can do the most damage to a person's faith. But with that said, I do think miracles are real. And I even think we see them done with human hands and minds on a regular basis in this world. We've just maybe come to a place in the world where some aren't able to call them miracles any longer, because they've seen enough fake miracles where people just pretended to make a quick buck. But truly, I see miracles all the time. I see miracles in our prayer chain here at church, people praying for healing in ways that are astounding. I see miracles on the news, people stepping up and doing selfless things in this world, like fighting for racial justice and creation care issues. I see miracles right here today, with people of diverse backgrounds and opinions, are being brought together to live in a way where forgiveness and love, miracles themselves, take place. I see miracles all around us with doctors, nurses, with medical treatments. We all see things that are miracle cures every day in our lives, or in the lives of friends and family. Just because some don't want to call them miracles, just because some can't see the power of God's miracle working and being done through education and scientific breakthroughs, that does not mean that they are not miracles. And to prove my point, maybe, from sort of a strange perspective, think what it would be like if you were able to go back 2,000 years ago in a time machine. To pick up anybody that was there with Jesus on that boat on the day when he walked on water, and to bring them to today. To show them the miracles, the many miraculous ways that God has worked through the people, just plain people like Peter, to work out miracle after miracle. I mean, you'd probably not even have to go back that far. For some of us, just think back to when you were a kid. Not long ago, if they said something like, "You have cancer," you knew that you needed a miracle to survive. Well, that miracle is happening now for so many people. Yes, it is scientific advancement, but who's to say that it is not also a miracle? God's work. I, for one, am not. I see God's work, God's miracles every day, and whether we want to admit they are miracles or something else, for me, these miracles are definitely being worked by God through us. For me, these scientific breakthroughs are not so different than Jesus walking on water. They are miracles. And all they do for me, like they did for those in that boat watching Jesus walk on water, is help me to see that God is with us, the Emmanuel, through us with every single trouble in our lives. Today, in our modern world, we see things all the time that just aren't supposed to be possible. That not that long ago, somebody would have said it would take a miracle. I'll leave you with this thought. I've never forgot what Bishop Suarez said one time at the beginning of his career as our current bishop of the Florida Bahamas Synod. And I'm sure I'll quote it sloppily, but he said to this idea of working miracles, what if we really believed we could do miracles? I mean, what would that mean for this world if we really believed that God could work miracles through